Hello and welcome to episode 150 of the 77 Club. Harry, start with the socials.
The Wall 77 Club on Facebook and Instagram, at 77 Club Podcast on Twitter, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Please subscribe and tell a friend.
Dan Bayliss is here.
Hello, Wolves fans.
And Jack Williams.
Hello, football fans.
Episode 150, huge podcast episode milestone, but also a huge episode in terms of the game. As we're recording this, news is breaking, a bit like the foundations of the European Super League. So, I mean, we will try not to say, oh my God, this has happened. So it sort of stands the test of time a little bit, but we will sort of be reacting to what's going on out there at the moment. You may take your leave, but you'll never take our pyramid, seems to be the message. I mean, over the last couple of days, Harry, I think we've all been distraught. And I think it's the first time that Europe has been united ever, it seems. And it's funny how it took a European Super League plan to pull everybody together. But when we saw the news, when it came out, it was just a little bit devastating, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it? Sunday night, Gary Neville had his few rants, and then everyone was waiting for like a 9:30 deadline one of the nights. Was that last night? It's all merged into one now, but or the night before. And I was shocked, I must be honest. I know there's always been talk of this, and we spoke about, like, what was that project we spoke about a few months ago as well, and we had Aaron on. Yeah, the big picture, that was it. So we knew they were greedy, the top six, let's be honest. And it's all about the owners, we know that. And it just shows it's pure greed. And to do it in a pandemic where there's no fans, it just shows how much cowards they are as well, because they knew there'd be backlash. I don't think they knew it'd be this much. And I'm just glad that every single football fan in the country, 98%, whatever you want to say, has really protected our game and protested. And I think shout out to Gary Neville as well. I feel like he's led the way a bit and he's an absolute legend.
And Bayliss, when we were sort of seeing it drip fed a little bit on Sunday night, it was something that we thought was never going to happen, but partway through a season, like Harry said there, during a global pandemic, and then blaming a pandemic for the reason of doing it.
It's horribly opportunist, isn't it, in the way it's been formed and done, and I'm glad it's coming apart at the seams as we speak. I'm glad we're live on YouTube, really, because we can date and time this, because it is falling apart as we speak. I'm disgusted. The whole point of sport is competition. That's why we love it. To take that away and form this oligarchy-style nonsense is a disgrace, really, to sport. And I really hope they're still all punished heavily.
And Jack, it wasn't so much the idea of the Super League. It was the idea of it being a closed shop, wasn't it? That I think annoyed most people, really got the goat of everybody.
It's the complete, audacity of the entire situation, and I think particularly there's obviously this has sort of stemmed from, you can say it's from letting foreign owners into football, letting money into football, but the problem is these clubs now, particularly like with the big American owners, are being run like a business, and we've only got 4 Champions League spots. You can like it or not, that's how many we've got, and 6 teams who think they are the so-called Big Six. No, they're not called the top 6 anymore. The reason they're not called the top 6 is because they aren't necessarily the top 6. And that is what they don't like. They don't like the fact that their investment can be sort of dampened or risked by Leicester, by West Ham, by Burnley, even by us to an extent, because we've had a taste of it as well. And they don't like risk. They don't want to risk their
investment. But that should be the point of an investment, shouldn't it?
Well,
if you invest in something, there is an intrinsic risk to that investment. They are trying to close that shop.
If you're coming from a background of American sport, whether it's NFL, the Major Baseball League, whatever, where you've got franchises which can be moved from city to city whenever it is, and the more games you play, the more merchandise you sell, means you get a bigger share of the profits, and that's what you're going to want to turn it into. And
it's more the fact that it's actually coming from an investment banking perspective rather than an American sport perspective. That's what they've done. This is set up by an investment bank. And run by people who are business people, not sport lovers. And they have seen an opportunity, and it's JP Morgan Chase, isn't it? So they are one of the largest investment banks going. And what they have done is seen an opportunity to profit from something and have done what an investment bank done. They do. That's what they do in their day-to-day world. Sadly, they've realized they've done it to the wrong people, and the people have backlashed, and it's not going to happen, which is fantastic. Fantastic result for people and not one for an investment banker, which I'm going to remain commentless on that, but I think it's the right result, personally.
Harry, when we look at the state of play at the moment and the teams involved, just going back to the very beginning of this, were you surprised by the clubs that had signed up to it?
Not particularly, no, because we mentioned the owners earlier, and I think all but one or two of them are American owners. And you've mentioned the model of their sports. Aaron, is it Kroenke who brought a club in America and completely moved their location?
He bought the St. Louis Rams and moved them to LA.
And just moved. And if he can do something like that and have no remorse or anything, and not feel guilty, it doesn't surprise me if someone like him wanted to do this. And the top six are usually the top six. The season we came 7th, they were, but they're slowly starting to fall away, aren't they? Arsenal, Spurs, and like you say, they want to be guaranteed to be in European football every year because they want the money. It's as simple as that. The top of the game is all about the money, and it's come in ever since Roman Abramovich come in the early noughties, and you could probably argue when the top division became the Premier League, the money has just become more important than the fans, and they just got no remorse, have they? And it's terrible. So it didn't surprise me too much.
The economic principles of it are really simple. If you've got competition in the marketplace and you can't beat that competition, then try and take it away.
Yeah.
And that's what they've essentially tried to do. They've taken a real business view of it, which is disgusting for us. But that's what they do. That's what they're there to do. The problem on the same side of it is that
we spoke about this earlier, right?
Massively.
They don't care about people like us who've had season tickets most of our lives.
No, they don't give a toss.
They want tourists to come over, don't they? And watch their games, buy all the merch and things like that, spend loads of money, get like few tickets for their mates and make a day out of it. They'd rather have a ground full of tourists, wouldn't they? Spending big money.
You have to remember nowhere near millions of people paying $5 a time on your Amazon Prime. They're not even comparable. They are not even close to comparable. And if you can continually draw those crowds of big numbers consistently at your £5 a time, you're making a hell of a lot more money. And that's all they care about.
I think we can all agree, though, across the pandemic, the last 12 months has probably accelerated a lot of things. And I think it's made us realise a lot of things, too, in that football really is nothing without fans. And, we've spoken, I know how I have in the podcast over the course of the last 12 months, saying that I'm bored to death at some moments of the football that I'm watching and not being entertained. And that's purely down to fans not being in the ground. Now, I'm not saying that every single game that I watched in a stadium or watched with a stadium full of fans was brilliant end-to-end and entertaining, but it's so much better than what it is now. And you can tell, and the players feed off it as well. Can
I give you a little quote that's it's been well versed out over the last couple of days, but I think it absolutely sums up sport brilliantly, which is what is a club in any case? Not the buildings or the directors or the people who are paid to represent it. It's not the television contracts, the get-out clauses, the marketing departments, or the executive boxes. It's the noise, the passion, the feeling of belonging, the pride in your city or town. It's a small boy clambering up stadium steps for the very first time, gripping his father's hand, gawping at that hallowed stretch of turf beneath him, and without being able to do anything about it, falling in love.
Imagine doing that at the Hawthorns. Imagine how gutted you'd be. Imagine how gutted you'd be.
I'm very sorry. I've got to step away for 3 seconds to just go and move a cat.
No right, okay. Well, we know expensive.
A very horribly expensive cat.
I mean, as we talk about it, it does seem that the wheels are coming off. We're seeing, names like Ed Woodward falling on his sword. I know Andrea Agnelli at Juventus is about to do the same as well. Harry, is this part of a big shake-up, or is this part of a much bigger plan where they'll shock the footballing world with the idea of it, pull out and go again, because it is harder to re-shock people?
No, I think they've generally pulled out because they've succumbed to the pressure. Is it the ECB? They all started to leave over the last few days too. So when they started doing that, I think that's when we knew it was kind of real. And I think they've just had an absolute nightmare. They've just made a huge mistake, and I'm quite surprised how the fans have got behind it all. So they must be too. And obviously, at the time of recording, Chelsea fans are outside protesting before their game. Chelsea pulled out. So no, I don't think they will try again. Maybe in about 10 years or something. I don't know, but I think this is just huge for the game that the fans have managed to have their say, and it's actually worked by the looks of it.
And it shows something wonderful about football, doesn't it? That actually, in so many facets of the world, the little people, the people without the money, normally can't do a hell of a lot about it. And here we can, and the collective football fans on the whole across the world, or this country at least, can do something about it and have so quickly. It's unbelievable.
I'm quite shocked at how quickly.
I was going to say, you're surprised.
I was expecting that we were going to have to be protesting in the street, marched on the ground, and you've seen like quite mild scenes, really, probably due to the pandemic. That's probably why they announced it now, is they knew that if there was crowds in the ground, that game last night, Leeds against Liverpool, would have been murder. And I'm surprised it's unravelled this quickly, because I thought that we'd be fighting this for weeks and months ahead, legal challenges and all these sort of things. So it's good that it seems like Chelsea were the first team to sort of see the light. And if I understand correctly, Chelsea and Man City was sort of last to the party and just joined because they feared they were going to miss out if they didn't, sort of thing. But it just shows how completely out of touch these boards and these owners are with the actual fan base to even consider it as an idea. And the whole audacity of the situation, the whole concept that Leicester City, whoever it is, could win the league. And well done, Leicester, you've won the league, you've been the best team in the country, well done. You now get the honour of playing Arsenal midweek twice in a European competition. Arsenal, who finished fucking 11th in the league in a dog shit, but they sell a lot of shirts and they got 60,000 in the Emirates every week. Honestly, just the absolute cheek of it in the first place. We should not forget it, and we should hold them accountable, and if necessary, get them out of the game.
It needs to be. I've gone through this. It needs to be a destruction of those 6 clubs for the next 5 years of their being. Teach them a lesson. If you want to do this to football, if you want to take the competition out of sport, do one. Absolutely do one. That's what sport's about. We don't go to Wolves to win every week. We know we will lose. We know we'll be shit, but when we're good, it makes it better. That's the point of sport.
Like when we got to Europe, Bayless. Like when we got to Europe, how good was that feeling?
Yeah, that's why when we went to Europe, it meant so much more to us than it does to them.
Well, people actively try and avoid 7th normally, don't they? Because it is a ball ache to do the Thursday, Sunday, as we sort of realised. But Harry, what do you think should happen next? I mean, a bit of a 2-part question, really, because I suppose, A, what do you think of the response to UEFA, Premier League, FA? And B, we've got to be talking about points deductions, some sort of penalties, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people have been quoting the rule book and things like that. So if they stick to the rules, they've got to be punished. But I've got a feeling they won't be, because we saw earlier as well, UEFA announced the new Champions League in like 24-25 season. And that's down to the top 6 clubs moaning all the time, saying, they want more teams in it. They want more guarantees. So they've added a few little rules in. So if Arsenal do go a bit further down, they can get in because of their history in the competition. So they have pandered to the top 6. So for them to do this as well and try and break away is mad. So they've got to be punished. But I've got a feeling they won't be. And if they're not, it's absolutely shocking. The top 6 are just full of greed, and they've got to be brought down a peg or two. And the rest of the league have been voting on it too, and I think they want it to happen.
We saw it when Man City broke the rules last time. UEFA let them off.
Yeah.
The biggest problem we've got here is that the people we need to pull through for us have been the shithouses of the last 20 years of football.
Yeah, the Premier League. Yeah.
And now we're relying on them to help the fans. And if there's anyone that I can't put my faith in, it's UEFA and FIFA and the Premier League. They've had disaster after disaster, and they might come out of this smelling of roses, which is really funny.
They have only ever had financial arguments around UEFA. And I mean, let's not talk about racism now, but it's been appalling how they've dealt with that. But in terms of finance, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. But the one thing that I think they've respected, and I think Sky falls into that bracket as well, is that they didn't underestimate the passion within the game. Yeah, they've made it more expensive to do it, but that's market forces versus culture.
I disagree a little bit. My point is, right, all this really is the shithouses with more money have outdone the shithouses with a lot of money. And that's essentially what this is. Sky don't like this. Their pundits don't like this. UEFA don't like this. FIFA don't like this. Premier don't like this, just because they've been one-upped. Now, we all agree the ESL is a horrible, disgusting idea. But the reason reaction's been so quick from the likes of UEFA, FIFA, and the Premier League is only because they've been done over.
Yeah, but
it's the competition aspect, though, isn't it?
Could you blame it on them? Because they let them in to own the clubs. I know recently Newcastle had like an absolute quadrillionaire try and take over, and the top 6 clubs didn't like it. Moaned to the Premier League, so they didn't let them get took over. I can't remember.
It's one of my
exactly
points. It's one of my points to save football, Harry. That'll be
yeah, but
soon.
But like, it's kind of like you let these owners in, so it's kind of the Premier League's fault too. They've let these massive billionaire owners in from America and God knows where, and now it's come back to bite them on the ass a bit. So they've got to clamp down now, haven't they? They've made a little bit of a mistake letting them in, and now clamp down on them.
But I think they've got to let them in. We've got to have them because football in Europe has to remain the best football, and to do that, sadly, it needs the most money. And as long as we're keeping competition in it, clearly the fans are quite happy about that. Yeah, there are some things to quabble about. You know, we could all argue about there's too much corporate in stadiums, the fans are losing it, the atmospheres are going, we need to reduce that. Yeah, but we do need the money in football to keep the European game being the best form of football. Because it could easily fuck off to America or to China. They aren't going to stop it.
I don't know if Sam was going to ask this anyway, he probably was, but we've spoke about it. Do you think if we'd have got invited before all the backlash and that Wolves would have accepted it? Because I think we'd have considered it, and I think we would have. It's probably controversial to say. Yeah, I think we would have. I really do.
Is it available for hire, Harry and Bayliss? Your time machine to when Fosun would release any sort of statement regarding that? Is it available?
Well, I'm just saying, man.
I think if you look at the reasons for their ownership and the statements they've made in the past about how they own Wolves and how they operate as a business and the businesses they buy and the markets they deal in and the investment structures that they deal in, you would have to suggest they'd probably go for it.
Well, they'd have considered it at least.
Well, the good thing is they've made a statement now, haven't they? Which was it was a very good statement, actually. I'm sure a lot of you have already probably read it, but it's kind of like tied their hands just in case we do progress into a football superpower in the next 15, 20 years, because they've basically said how against it they were, how they bought into the history and all this sort of stuff.
That's good.
So hopefully it knocks it on the head for now. I mean, the worry is this just, were they planning for this? They must have known this was going to happen. Maybe not with the backlash they were quite expecting, but is this one of the things where, okay, they've tried once, they'll try again in a couple of years, and eventually
it's the reshock thing, isn't it? It's difficult to reshock people because it has to be worse and worse every time because you just get used to the new normal, don't you? Really. Go on, Bayliss.
It's very hard to close the stable door after the horse has bolted, though. Remember that.
Did any of you? I know I did.
Did any of you comment after it?
Did any of you think what it'd actually be like if it happened? Because I did start to think, well, maybe the Premier League will go on without them. The wages and the transfers might go down a bit. We might get a little bit more reality back with our game. Obviously, it might have affected the quality of the game a bit, but I kind of started to think, you know what? I probably wouldn't mind it too much because I'm fed up with the greedy Big Six anyway. I'm glad it's not happening now.
It was the opportunity for the great reset, wasn't it? That's what it was.
Yeah.
I think we'd eventually made the most of it, and that's because of because we honour the history and we're the real fans. And I think I said this on the group, is like, if they want to go, let them go. Start Phoenix clubs for Liverpool, AFC Tottenham, whatever it might be, and we'll play with our pyramid again.
They'd have to start in Division 7, though, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and I've only been to the Emirates and Anfield recently. I know Bayliss and Jackie went to the new Spurs stadium last year. For me, every time I go to one of the big six teams, even Old Trafford as well, we went there a few years ago, it is like a library, isn't it? Because there's so many tourists there. And I feel like Molineux, the other clubs that are outside the top six, you go to their grounds and it's class. It's still got the core of the fans there. Have been going for years. You sing the songs and that. And that's why I was kind of a bit like, well, they're all full of tourists anyway. Let them go.
Spurs was better than Arsenal. Arsenal is the worst stadium in football.
Yeah, man, it's terrible.
By a distance. It's a crap stadium. It was built at the wrong time. It's architecturally disgusting. It doesn't fit very well. You're climbing up horrible concrete dead staircases to get anywhere. The concourses aren't great. The fans are shit.
It's cost effective, isn't it? It was very, very well done because it was built at the same time pretty much as Wembley, wasn't it? And when you look at Wembley and how over budget it was, but, Arsenal managed to deliver a stadium.
If you wish to have a discussion about architects and the ability to use a functional building for value, we'll be sat here a very long time.
We won't.
I can promise you it's a shit stadium.
Conor McGregor's tweeted to say, "Hey guys, I'm thinking about buying Manchester United. What do you think?"
He could probably afford it. The amount of money he's made off whiskey. Jesus.
Bayliss, I want to go ahead with your plan to save football. I mean, I don't know if it's slightly outdated now, but I'm going to open the floor to you anyway.
Well, yeah, I just was pondering.
Anyone called Semedo is banned.
Ban. This is where I got to from my pondering, mostly whilst having a poo.
How's the new job going? All right. You said you're really busy all the time. I did have to publish a 10-step plan.
This was about 15, 20 minutes over lunch, and I thought they all made sense. 30% of all profits made by clubs, excluding the transfers to stop any jiggery pokery of the numbers, is to be pooled and distributed with fixed amounts between teams at each tier. There'll be a wage cap of 200k a week agreed by all FIFA members. Countries that don't comply, but then have players who choose to play in those leagues, can't take place in World Cups or European fixtures, African Nations Cup, etc. The FA Cup becomes a Champions League spot. Same for all UEFA nations and their respective cups. The reformed Champions League, the major nations, which the UK, Germany, Spain, and Italy, all get one more place in the Champions League. Any prize money from European tournaments goes straight to grassroots football in those respective countries. And then because of what's happened here, the top 6 that have done it are docked 30 points for this season and the following 2 seasons. The 6 are immediately removed from their current season's competitions, and whoever they beat to get through to those stages of competitions do a playoff to get those places. Those 6 are then banned from all UEFA competitions for the following 5 years. Owners of clubs now have to be reviewed on a 5-year basis, and they can't hold a club for ransom. If they aren't running a club successfully or correctly, then an independent body can decide to remove them, and their club can only be put on the market for an independent valuation price by an independent valuation. So they can't hold a club to ransom, essentially.
Yeah, Bayliss, just off the back of something like that, I like the Germans pretty much said they weren't in straight away, didn't they? And haven't they got a rule where their clubs have got to be at least owned by 51%?
They don't try and take over Europe anymore. That's their rule.
Yeah, but
rule.
like 51% of the fans have got to own their club.
They tried twice and it didn't go very well.
I'm just saying, like, I know Boris has come out, your hero Boris, and I think he's spoke about doing something like that for England or trying to. You'd never get it through, but
hang on, let Harry finish.
Yeah.
No, go on. That's it.
No, I got what you're saying. I think a club should still be able to be owned by an owner, no problem. But I think there needs to be an independent mechanism within the bodies that run the governance of football to deem them worthy of what they're doing. We've seen it with Charlton. They've had a torrid time. I've got mates that are Charlton fans that just hate the owners. Newcastle trying to get these Saudi diplomat killers in charge. It just needs a bit of consideration by the people that actually govern football. It shouldn't be a government thing. You just need to make sure that people that own those football clubs are right and proper to do so. The fans, yes, of course, you'd have a say in your club, and it should be respected. But forcing fans to have to run it might discourage the investment you need for your club to succeed.
It's getting above our level of intellect and knowledge, I think, now in these sorts of things. But a lot of people do admire the German model, yeah. And you've just got to say fair play to Munich, Dortmund, PSG for sort of not just going along with it for the sake of being left out, which is kind of what Man City and Chelsea appear to have done. So fair play to that. I mean, the other aspect that it was a really difficult situation for the players to be in, albeit just for 48 hours, because I wonder what they must have been thinking. And with all these things being flown around about, you could throw them out of the Premier League, throw them out of, international competition that's in the FIFA World Cup, all these sorts of things. And I wonder if there'd have been a backlash. Do you think players would have actually gone and wanted to play in it? And would you have had top players coming out and making a stand and saying, no, I don't want to play in that. I'd rather just go and play for,
I've seen players come out and say that, haven't they, Harry?
Yeah, Milner did straight away. Obviously, was it Herrera was one of the first. I think he was at PSG. But I think the threat of them not being able to play in the World Cup and Euros would have been a huge one. For like someone like Harry Kane, and would he have wanted to go with Spurs if he couldn't play for England, for example? But it'd have been interesting to see if it had gone on longer, because obviously at time recording it's starting to crumble and everyone's starting to back out. But if they would have put their foot down and said no, we're doing it, and then would UEFA and etc. actually have stood tall and actually ban the players, the superstars, because they need the superstars in the major tournaments to get people the worldwide to watch, don't they? So it'd be interesting to see.
I think the players would have boycotted. There was so much. We saw in one day, in a few hours on Twitter, the amount of players that were against it. Surely,
apart from Carl Henry, he was for it. Maybe
maybe like a lot of them would have boycotted, and then they're in the situation where they've got to play Jesus for Leo, $100,000 a week to play in the Super League for Barcelona.
We did say though, at least Connor Cody would have started at the Euros, wouldn't he? He'd have been straight in that
Yeah.
defence without the top six boys there.
Yeah, is that a good thing? I don't know. Yeah, it would have been interesting to see how it develops, but it is good, obviously, that it's been knocked on the head pretty quickly, because I don't think the players would have really wanted it. And it's nice that some of them, like you say, I saw the Milner interview last night, and the man just didn't want it either, did they? You could tell the man just didn't want it, but they were. And the disgraceful thing is that they weren't consulted, and they've just pulled this out of the bag without even talking to the managers, talking to the players, talking to the FA. To be fair to the FA, I think they've said everything right in the last 48 hours. They've come out straight away, said they're against it. There's not much more they could have done to sort of shoot it down straight away. But the fact that this is kind of like there's a global pandemic on, and they're all having secret meetings to try and determine how they can. It's basically a recycle of Project Big Picture, in it. A few months later, how they're trying to exploit this pandemic, not for the greater good of football, because it's bollocks if you think it's the greater good of football. I mean, come on. You think you're telling me that money's going to trickle down the tree? Is it not? Trickle down economics doesn't work. So it's for their own filthy pockets, really, and it's quite disgraceful. And if I was, I'm not saying obviously Wolves are perfect, but if I was a fan of any of those big clubs, I'd want the owners out straight away. Change of ownership. If it had come to it, man, if it had come to it and they were going to take us into that league, I'd rather see Molineux burned to the ground and we rebuild it brick by brick than it be used for that.
Go on, Bayless, go on.
You punish the fans that clearly don't want it. Even though I've said ruin them for 5 years, it does punish the fans a lot, and it isn't the fans' fault. And there's nothing we can do. There's nothing there's nothing we can do to stop people in India, China, wherever the hell they are, following a football team. And they should have the right to follow a football team. It's the owners and the people that have put this together that are the issue.
Yeah, the tough thing is as well, if it would have gone ahead and we'd have all been like, right, let's protest, let's boycott the grounds. I know it's behind closed doors anyway now, but it'd been so hard for a lot of fans to do because it's their life, isn't it? I think a lot of fans would have just continued going. We've seen protests try and happen before and they've failed. And the only one I can remember working really is when Liverpool did it for the ticket prices when they walked out the top of the stand. It was like 70 quid a ticket or something. But it had just been interesting to see. But it's so hard to ask a fan who's been going for 40 years to just like either not get a season ticket because you know someone else will probably end up buying it who wants it, or buy the season ticket and just not turn up or something like that. So it'd have been tough.
But do you think
it's the big problem of being a global? Oh,
God, at the same time that, you know, we went to a few European away days and they were great and it was brilliant. But do you think the average person can afford to just do that every week?
No,
you got to fly to Barcelona, and next week you got to fly to bloody.
That's where the tourists come in, Jack. That's when it's going to be dead. Because they'll probably eventually wanted to get the games played on a neutral venue, like in America or something, to get them fans to watch. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have just been at Anfield or at the Bernabeu or whatever. They'd have tried to get neutral grounds and take it everywhere.
So here you go. Here you've got a Super League game, and it's taking place in Shanghai this week. And
at 2 a.m. to get the American fans in prime time or whatever.
But the problem is, you've hit the nail on the head. The biggest problem is that it's complete supply and demand economics. There is only 40,000 people that can get in that stadium. If someone's currently paying 30 quid and someone's going to pay 40 quid, they'll do it.
Yeah. And
there's no way to prevent it other than you say to existing season ticket holders, you can renew first, and we'll make, the Premier League say, right, we're going to cap the price at.
Yeah, but tourists aren't going to buy season tickets.
No, there's going to.
No, that's the only way to stop it. That's the only way to stop it. I'm saying.
None of them would have done this if they weren't confident that they could sell out their whole ground week after week, even if they got rid of all the season ticket holders tomorrow.
And broadcast rights. Say if they just said to like sod Sky and BT, let's make our own thing, let's make our own app, and we can charge. If the 12 clubs are the ones who founded it and owned it, they can to watch this. We're having our own app, and the fans who want to watch it can pay.
We discussed this. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I think somebody said, and then you'll get Shakira doing the halftime show. You can watch Jake Paul fight a chimpanzee after, and you can charge £20 a month for the privilege, and you'll just completely do them all over. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So just to round it off, do you think it just shows that huge disparity that there is between the culture of sport in Europe and the culture of sport over in America. So we've watched live sport in both places and both of a top standard, and we've watched derby games in both countries as well. And we were able to get tickets for the derby game over in America, and we're there trying to start chants and like proper chants, not like we think we're gonna win or let's go Rapids, let's go.
Let's go.
Not absolute piss poor foam fingered shite like that. But do you think that's just where the difference is that it's not just about selling a shirt, it's actually being proud of the badge that's on it?
Go on, mate.
Sorry, I know I've spoken a lot, but I do actually feel quite passionate about all this. It's because there isn't the community connection to sport as what we have. They are franchises. Everyone in America knows they are franchises. We could fit all the teams we've got in the 92 EFL clubs into a state the size of fucking Florida. It really is tribal to us. It is where you're from. It's what you do. And the people that are ruining it are the people that don't support the teams of where they're from and what they do. And that's the issue. Whereas in America, no one cares if you support the St. Louis Rams or the LA Rams. There's no issue. We even had the uproar when MK Dons became from Wimbledon. And that was a tiny club in the lower league. They don't get the passion and what sport really means to us, because our clubs are hundreds of years old. It's as old as their country.
Yeah.
We've got doorknobs in our houses that's older than their entire country. They just don't get it. They don't get traditionalism because they haven't got it.
Yeah.
Created by the poor, stolen by the rich. I think that's the best quote I saw.
Yeah, I think it's now.
The thing is, without the rich, we wouldn't have what we have today, and that's the issue. We wouldn't have football as we know it today. We wouldn't have gone to Barcelona and stood in a square and drank beer with our mates and had the best time of our lives without the rich buggers that funded football.
Very true. Just another thing.
Go on.
Sorry, just another thing. Do you know they said they're going to invite five other teams to join them if it did happen? If they would have made it, so I don't know, you could get promoted to it if you won the Premier League without them in it, and then. But obviously, the founders can't get relegated, so I don't really know how it would work. Would you be for it then? It would have been like the Championship, basically.
No,
I still probably wouldn't have.
I think that whole 5 extra teams thing was just an afterthought to try and get more people on board. You can come and play with us as long as you earn it. But
what's the difference? That's what I don't get about that, because wouldn't it just get exponentially bigger as time went on? Because it's like, there's no relegation, but you're actually not invited next season. I mean, what's the difference between that and relegation?
Exactly. And say if they invited 5 teams in, and just for argument's sake, those 5 teams got in the top 5 of the Super League, the bottom 15 teams are the founders, or the bottom 12 can't be relegated. They're the founders. They're not allowed to leave. So then the top 5 would have to get kicked out and let someone else in.
It would just be different teams next year. And maybe you're touching on like what you said there. Maybe eventually they'll say, okay, we don't. There's no criteria. We just invite 5 teams a year by invitation. We'll have LA Galaxy this year. And then we'll have a team
into
from
Miami
Australia,
and
we'll
have Shanghai
these sorts of things. And eventually it's just building the whole league as a brand rather than any sort of footballing merit. Because you've only got 5 places, and Portuguese teams have won European Cups, Scottish teams have won European Cups. Places like Turkey are always there. There are other big teams that are just not in the big 5 leagues.
Tottenham haven't won one
as well.
They have won a European Cup. They haven't won the Champions League.
That's why it just winds me up even thinking about it again. The audacity of Tottenham and Arsenal.
They won the league since the 60s, have they, Spurs?
But mate, there's all these big clubs with big history, and how do you allocate 5 places to that? We have to do a tournament amongst ourselves to then get into the Super League for a year and then get removed even if we win it the next year. It's the whole thing just stinks, and it's just completely flawed.
Yeah, and it was the arrogance of them as well in their rules. They were just like, this is our new Wednesday, like midweek thing. We're still going to be in the Premier League, by the way. Just them thinking that there'd be no issue, like the Premier League, like, go on then. No problem, lads.
There's no L9.
Without us, there's no Premier League. And I tell you what, there would have been a Premier League without them. And we'd have all still gone. We'd have all still watched it. And we'd have probably enjoyed it more. And that's the thing they don't quite get, is that these clubs, they've not been the big 6 forever. They could fall off their perch. It's happened to teams in the past. Look at Sunderland. Look at what's happened, Newcastle, Leeds, us. We've all been down and then come back up. And that can happen again. And it would be funny if it did. One of them.
The thing is, do you think they've taken their model from other sports that have become popular around the world and not America as well? Because this whole forming an oligarchy, which is what they've done, has been done really well in India, where there are a lot of football fans with the cricket, and it's making a lot of money and it's getting a lot of viewers.
Yeah, but cricket's massive in India, though. And
they get a lot of viewers for football. But they get a lot of viewers for football, as do China. Not for the cricket, but China. Is it just purely this? Let's take the foreign market that makes the money and bugger the fans.
I don't know, because the Chinese Super League didn't work at all, did it? It all crumbled. You're paying players £500,000 a week. Yeah, but they couldn't through money. So what? How do you attract the best players? It's through the best competition, and B, the emotional culture that's attached to it. And if you haven't got that, you can't build it in 5 minutes.
But that's about it being a competition, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's
because we have the best competition. That's why we've got it. The Chinese Super League doesn't work because you've got Hulk on £500,000. Great, let's turn in to watch him playing with Fukin Awful on 20p a week. So
yeah, I agree.
Fantastic
analogy, fantastic.
And that's why we need the money. That's why we need the money in the European game to stop the Chinese and the Americans doing it. That's why
we just said it's not about them. It's not about the money, though, is it?
It is.
It's about the culture and the competition. That's the whole point. It's not about the money. They've tried it with the money. It failed.
The players can be bought, but they won't be.
They weren't, no doubt.
If they've got the competition, and to keep the competition strong, you need the money.
But this Super League is not really a competition, is it? Because it's just you just stay there.
That's what
that's why it's such a horrible idea. But we're now talking about why foreign leagues haven't been as successful as they could or should have been.
It's just like
when Aaron said to us when he said in the NBA, because they get the draft picks and the worst teams get the best players, weren't some teams stalling towards the end to try and be worse? Yeah, so they get better picks next year. Imagine if it ended up like that, the Super League.
The thing is, though, if you're the best baseball player or basketballer in the world and you go, I don't really fancy playing for a crap league and being the first pick, where the hell are you going to go in the world? Honestly, the American sport is so atrocious. It's about as good as their fan base. It isn't there, is it? No one is interested around the world in American sports. If we call it the World Series, only American teams take part.
That's because it's named after a newspaper.
Okay, well, the one thing that I didn't get either was that they can't even come to a decision on what to call it. They don't even call it football. That's the biggest atrocity, I think, is that you don't even call it the same thing. How the hell do you expect to build?
I think that's also a misnomer, Sam. I think the original rules of football called it soccer. I hate to poo on your parade.
Well, they don't call it soccer now, do they? That's my point.
No, they don't now. I'm just saying.
No. And if you're talking about 1860, then you'll have to forgive me.
Also, when football was founded, it was a closed club. I know we are going into some ridiculous sidewinders here.
Professionally, I'm sure.
Well, they wanted to stop professionals. That was the whole point of the original point of the old Moravians and Etonians that set up football to start with.
150 quid each for NFL tickets. That says it all, doesn't it? That's what the Americans want to do. They'd probably put the bloody match day tickets to the Super League up to that as well for the tourists to go and watch.
It's what Dan said earlier. Like supply and demand. If you can sell them, then that's what they want to do. Particularly if you can take it to Asia and sell them.
How many teams are in the NFL?
There's 2 conferences in there. Is there like 12 in each conference or something?
Right,
like that?
And there's 330 million people in America, and there's 24 teams. So of course they're going to sell out. You charge what you want. That is literally supply and demand.
And also, I suppose it's very different because a lot of American sports fans, they don't necessarily go to every game. They go to a game once or twice a year, I think.
And also, their second tier is as popular. Their second tier, their college sport, is as popular. That's the other thing. You'll get more people go and watch Ohio State in an NFL in their football match. Call it football match than you would at an NFL game. Their stadium holds like 90,000 or something.
Hold on, lads. Didn't you do that tailgating? Hungry like a wolf. Just put in the YouTube comments.
Yeah, you call it tailgating. Basically, we took all the free beer that they had on offer, ate some barbecue and some pizza, and then disgraced ourselves.
We did, yeah. I mean, Jack covered me with water, or vice versa, when we were trying to do a TV interview for Rapids TV. I think when we went to see Jack Price play, but
it was about 40 degrees.
Let's leave the Super League alone, like all of the founding members seem to be doing now, and we'll turn our attentions to the latest Premier League action that we're also part of. And I'm going to pass you over to Harry now, because I told you last week. I said I'm going out on a Saturday. Tables booked. So I'm not going to be able to watch the game because I'm.
Did you not watch
too
it?
Hammered. No, of course I didn't, Harry, because we played garden cricket for about 10 minutes,
Sam.
and in that time I managed to roll down the hill about 5 times, and I've got the war wounds to prove it.
I witnessed it. He was drinking Peroni like it was squash. I've never quite seen anything like it. And were you in bed by about 8:15 in the end?
100%, yeah. In bed for kickoff. Incredible.
Well,
I had 12 hours sleep. It was great.
I'll be honest, Sam, you didn't miss much because I watched it with my dad. We'd been to the pub in the day too. And it was the first half. Oh my God, it was tedious. I mean, the starting lineup for a start, as soon as I saw we were 5 at the back, I was just like, I just slouched in my seat. I was like, here we go. We know what's coming now. And I said, didn't I, on the podcast last week, I know Jack and Bailey's predicted 1-0. I said, if we go 5 at the back, it probably will be 1-0 Wolves. But when we did go 1-0 up, I thought Sheffield United easily could have equalised. We kind of hung on a little bit. Patricio pulled off a good save and very, very boring, but we got the job done. It's 2 1-0 wins in a row. We're completely safe and just tedious to watch, wasn't it? It really was.
Yeah, I've got very little positive to say. It was just boring.
Yeah,
Poor football as well. We made a bad team look a lot better than they are.
I think they're to be Sheffield United fans. Will be, they're probably due good for a point, really. I know when you watch a few of the highlights back, it looked like we had the better chances, but they did all right. But it was
first goal for Jose though. That's a huge goal for him, isn't it?
I think he deserved it as well after the one being ruled out the other week. And
sorry,
good play
my
all round.
no,
that's all right. I'm glad. I'm gutted. Bailey is going to get that because I was about to mention Semedo. But yeah, the Semedo block and then to start off the attack, the counter attack, and again Traore with the assist. Is that a goal and 2 assists in his last 3? So there's a positive. I literally after the West Ham game said I never want to see Willian Jose get a chance again. I want it to be Fabio Silva. So I look silly now because he's basically scored 2 in the last 2 games since I said that, and I think he's all of a sudden he's flipped it on its head and made me look stupid because he probably is the nailed-on starter now, and he took his goal well, and fair play to him because he hasn't been doing that, has he?
I think we've got to just talk about Semedo just as Dan's coming back now.
Yes,
because that block, which eventually led to the goal, really. Sheffield United had a chance to really go in front and put us up against it, and but that block started the whole move, which was a great counter-attacking move. Semedo, Dan. But
Bayless,
that's not far off, really.
Give us your thoughts. We think he was man of the match. What do you think?
I thought he had a very good game. I would have personally given it to Adama. I thought he was just a bit better, but I did think Semedo had a very good game.
Well, by previous logic, the man of the match has to be William Jose because
he was the difference.
No, I think Traore caused them more problems.
I'm just using your own arguments back at you.
Yeah,
don't do that.
Fair enough.
Don't do that, Jack. He hates that.
No, hear me out. Traore, after the good pass from Silva last week, Traore made the run and scored the goal. But I think he made enough runs in that game and created enough opportunities without end result, and then did it again for the goal and got the cross in for the goal that I'm giving it to Traore. But I also think Semedo was very good. What I disagree with is the fact that social media are now hailing him as the greatest right back of all time. Lord of the right backs. Give him the Ballon d'Or against Sheffield United, the lowest goal scoring team in the Premier League of all time.
Oh, come on. He did well there, didn't he?
He had a good game.
You always criticise him for
2 man of the match performances in a row.
He lets
I'm not
himself down.
criticising him.
No, you say he lets himself down in the
him.
game-changing moments, but then you take the piss because that's a game-changing moment. That is.
Yes,
if he doesn't
and
get
he was
block
very
in,
good.
We're 1-0 down.
He was very good. Super. I'm not knocking it. I'm saying he had a good game, but this doesn't make him the greatest player thing since sliced bread.
I do agree with the comment there. We made Sheffield United look like Real Madrid, which is kind of what we do, isn't it? Really, that's kind of our thing. But
I tell you who wasn't on the opposite side of the spectrum, and I'm a bit worried about him. Pedence. He had a bad game, and then after the game, I think his dog died. Don't quote me on that. I hope that's right. But he was really down on social media after that, and I don't know what's going on with him.
He's firstly, I'm not convinced he's fully fit. If we're just talking purely about football since he came back, I don't think he is. But I haven't seen much of it. But I know he's been on social media a lot, and he posting
Instagram,
various stuff, and some of it obviously about the Super League, but other stuff too. I mean, you've probably seen it more than me, Harry. But yeah, don't know.
I've got to say, hungry like the Wolves comment about playing teams in relegation zone now is dangerous. I agree, but Sheffield United were gone. If they hadn't lost to us this week, they were going next week. I think the likes of your Albions, Fulhams, Newcastles, Burnleys, Brightons are dangerous. The ones we've got to play, the dangerous ones to play.
It's a big 3 points, though, in the grand scheme of things, because, it not only makes us feel a little better, it sort of actually makes us think we're looking up the table rather than sort of behind ourselves, Harry. And obviously with the Super League fallout, I think there's going to maybe be a little bit of a get out because they never played a game in the Super League, so they probably can't be punished because they haven't actually technically broken any rules. It was just an intent, but you never know. And like Dan says, you've got to play some teams that are not really performed this season.
Yeah, and I also think it's a big time. We said it last week because I pretty much thought we were safe, but Nuno obviously disagreed and wanted to completely make sure by beating Sheffield United. But let's experiment a bit. Vitinha gives right. We sound like a broken record, but he's got it really, hasn't he? Let's mix it up. Let's give him a go, and I hope he does. And I honestly want to see us play 4 at the back again, just for entertainment purposes towards the end of the season. Give us a bit of entertainment, please, Nuno.
Johnson.
Looking at the table as it is now, though, and the fact that there's a 4-point gap between us and Palace and 3 points between us and Villa with 2 games in hand, I'll be shocked if we are in 12th now and don't just finish 12th. I think that's it now. I think that's pretty much us done, and I'll be shocked either way if we go up or down and don't finish 12th now from where it is. Even though we've got a few favourable fixtures to come, I think that's us for our season. And with the injuries now, that's fine, considering we've basically got 11 first-team players, and that's it. And we can actually have a proper pre-season and rebuild in the summer. I think I'm content with that now. Let's just get this season out of the way. Hopefully, we've killed the Super League in the last hour or so, and that's started to fall apart. And then we can just go again next season, can't we?
I was going to say, is there a man of the match out there aside from? I mean, we were saying Semedo. I mean, Dan might.
It feels a lot like last week's podcast, doesn't it? When we were speaking about the Fulham game, I'm going to say Semedo. I am. I think. I don't know if you could accuse me of just concentrating on him a lot because we always argue about him, but he did have a good game, and because he was so poor at the start of the season, it is just good to see him getting a bit better. Yes, he's playing teams in the bottom 5. But if he created that goal for me. Great little start of the counter attack, and I'm going to give it Semedo again twice in a row.
Jack,
yeah, I'll go with Semedo. But let's be honest, I'd sort of take Dan's point that he's doing against Sheffield United on a day where the rest of the team are mostly below average. So
again, I will reiterate, just for the point of the tape, Semedo had a very good game. But personally, I think the attacking runs that Traore made and the setup for the goal warranted a man of the match performance.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we may as well move on to attention then this weekend. It's going to be against Burnley. And Harry, a little bit of payback, we hope, don't we?
Yeah. God, thinking back to that game, it's terrible, wasn't it, at their place? So
awful.
Definitely. And it's always a tough game. We know all the cliches. There'll be 4-4-2 organised. And I just want to see us match them, really. I want to see us go 4 at the back, not 4-4-2, but 4 at the back, and try and attack them, try and get an early goal, which we won't. We'll probably be 0-0 at half time. And let's hope it's more entertaining. 12 o'clock on a Sunday, and I believe it's on the BBC. I think we spoke about that, didn't we, off air? And I don't know, will we be entertained? Probably not. I just want to see a good performance and an attacking football. Now we're pretty much safe, and hopefully a win on top of that. We've had the 2 grind out 1-0s now. Now we want the entertainment, please. Just a little bit, please.
I mean, it was one of those games, wasn't it, early on in the season, Jack? But I mean, Burnley have really fallen by the wayside, haven't they? I mean, I think they're only 6 points ahead of Fulham. I mean, they'll probably be okay because Fulham have played the game more, but it's still squeaky bum time for them, isn't it?
Yeah, I will be shocked if the bottom 3 changes as well, really, considering I know we saw Fulham's run of fixtures. We talked about them a couple of weeks ago. And it's very difficult now. I know Albion have sort of got hopes after back-to-back wins that they might be able to pull some miracle together. But yeah, we'll see. It's the games against Burnley, and they don't sort of recently in the Premier League. They're not the best, are they? They don't sort of bring back the best memories.
They were better under Mick McCarthy, I think, weren't they? Against
I think back to just again when we were chasing Champions League football or European Super League football last season, and Doherty handballs it in their box in the last minute, in our box in the last minute. So I'm not expecting it. Given the last couple of performances as well, granted we put the wins together, I'm not expecting anything spectacular here, to be honest. And I think it's going to be another boring game, low scoring, and it could be 1-0 either way. I won't be shocked.
Bayliss, what are your thoughts? Is it just a chance to maybe even catch Villa?
That'd be nice. Unlikely, but it'd be nice. To be honest, there's been so much going through my head regarding football this week. I haven't really thought too much about it.
Yeah, same.
No, same.
Football, yeah.
We normally don't perform that well against them, do we? We beat them at home 1-0 the year before last.
Yeah, we got promoted. Yeah, we've had a few 1-1s, haven't we?
So I don't know. Just an entertaining performance would do me, because Sheffield United was bloody dire when you think about it.
It was. I mean, you say about catching Villa, though. They got Man City on Wednesday evening with 3 points behind them. And if they do lose to Manchester City, they'd have a game in hand. So it's all to play for on that front, isn't it?
I like what Hungry Like the Wolf said on YouTube there, with the executioners. We relegated Sheffield. We took Fulham's last hope. And fingers crossed we relegate the Albion in a couple of weeks. That'd be nice.
Is that still possible? So gone on that little run now. Who've they got the weekend?
I don't think it's possible to mathematically relegate them.
Well, I don't know.
I think it is. They need to be 12. They need to have 12 or 13 point difference, don't they? When we play them.
Also, that depends on teams like Burnley, because they need to get the points to make the gap bigger, doesn't it? I don't know.
No, but West Brom have played 31 games and they're on 24 points, and Burnley in 17th have got 33 points and have played 32 games. So Albion have played a game
9 points. Yeah, we can't technically do it.
I don't know. Maybe there is some way.
They'll probably do the double over us then.
I think that's an almost certainty as well, that they're going to beat us twice to get relegated. But
we'd need Burnley to beat us, Brighton to win, Newcastle to win, and West Brom to lose to make it even close to possible. I think. I don't think it ridiculous.
So do we want Burnley to beat us then? Is that what you're saying Sunday?
No, I don't care. I don't care what happens. Just beat the Albion, please. I can't break my foot again. I can't break my foot again on the sofa.
Are you sure you didn't kick a cat? Is that what you did?
Yeah, broke
kick a cat, didn't you?
If I kicked a cat, I wouldn't break my foot, would I?
I don't know, depends how hard you kicked it, I suppose.
Right, I'm gonna go and eat. I'm gonna go and eat my takeaway.
Hang on, wait! You can't just leave in the middle of the podcast.
You haven't done your bit then, have you?
I'm starving here.
Well, we'll give it 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. We'll do a score prediction starting with Harry.
1-0 Burnley.
Drag it out, Harry.
Jack, can you name the starting 11s for the last 5 games against Burnley?
Probably.
No, Jack, give us a score prediction.
Oh, something rubbish like 2-1 Burnley.
Bayliss.
2-2 draw.
2-2
What's the betting odds, Bayliss?
Let's get your latest betting odds and ticket news. We'll start with the ticket news this week, I think.
What ticket news?
Go on, Ben. I'm only joking.
Dan usually, for context, Dan's usually the person who rushes us to start the podcast, and now he's rushing us to finish the podcast. But during the podcast going on, which is a new low.
Of the 53 minutes we've been talking, Dan's been speaking 50 minutes.
We can't edit a live video.
He's the guy who turns up 15 minutes late and then says, "Come on, guys, why haven't we started yet?" It's basically what he does.
It's so true. And he knows it.
I've been very accommodating this evening. I turned down my opportunity of having a bat.
Excellent.
Right, betting on
coronavirus all over again. It's the Catford variant.
Willie Bolly to score first. Wolves 2-1, 115 to 1. Chris Wood to score first. Draw 1-0, 30 to 1. William Jose to score first. Wolves 2-0, 22 to 1. Leander Dendoncker to score first. Draw 2-2, 175 to 1.
Hey, that wasn't too bad. Only one fluff in that. Well, look, let's wrap it up, seeing as Dan looks very, very hungry, which is strange because that's not what his cheeks and neck suggest. We'll say goodbye then to Harry Mansell.
Goodbye, everyone.
Jack Williams.
What are you having for your tea, Dan? You haven't even said.
All right, I have been a disgrace, and I've gone and worked hard, bowled my overs in the nets, and had a Macca's. So,
that'll be lovely and cold.
Double cheeseburger and chips.
Any chasers in that?
There is a chaser in there, actually. Yeah.
What's the chaser?
Mayo chicken chaser.
Fruit bag. Excellent. Right, and it's a goodbye from Bayliss.
Goodbye, Wolves fans. Sorry for rattling on.
Hey, goodbye from me. Goodbye.
Bye.